The system of ascetic meditation known as yoga existed in the time of the Vedas. The Upanishads and the Mahabharata accepted it. It flourished in the age of Buddha, and even Alexander, attracted by the ability of these gymnosophists to bear pain silently, stopped to study them, and invited one of their number to come and live with him. The yogi refused as firmly as Diogenes, saying that he wanted nothing from Alexander, being content with the nothing that he had. His fellow ascetics laughed at the Macedonians' boyish desire to conquer the earth when, as they told him, only a few feet of it sufficed for any man, alive or dead. Another sage, Calanus, 326 B.C., accompanied Alexander to Persia. Growing ill there, he asked permission to die, saying that he preferred death to illness, and calmly mounting a funeral pyre, he allowed himself to be burned to death without uttering a sound, to the astonishment of the Greeks, who had never seen this unmurderous sort of bravery before. 2 centuries later, circa 150 B.C., Patanjali brought the practices and traditions of the system together in his famous Yoga Sutras, which are still used as a text in yoga centers from Benares to Los Angeles. Yuan Chuang, in the 7th century A.D., described the system as having thousands of devotees. Marco Polo, about 1296, gave a vivid description of it. Today, after all these centuries, its more extreme followers, numbering from 1 to 3 million in India, still torture themselves to find the peace of understanding. It is one of the most impressive and touching phenomena in the history of man. What is yoga? Literally, a yoke, not so much a yoking or a union of the soul with the Supreme Being, as the yoke of ascetic discipline and abstinence which the aspirant puts upon himself in order to cleanse his spirit of all material limitations and achieve supernatural intelligence and powers. Matter is the root of ignorance and suffering. Therefore yoga seeks to free the soul from all sense phenomena and all bodily attachment. It is an attempt to attain supreme enlightenment and salvation in one life by atoning in one existence for all the sins of the soul's past incarnations. Such enlightenment cannot be won at a stroke. The aspirant must move towards it step by step, and no stage of the process can be understood by anyone who has not passed through the stages before it. One comes to yoga only by long and patient study and self-discipline. The stages of yoga are 8. 1. Yama, or the death of desire. Here the soul accepts the restraints of ahimsa and brahmacharya, abandons all self-seeking, emancipates itself from all material interests and pursuits, and wishes well to all things. 2. Niyama, a faithful observance of certain preliminary rules for yoga: cleanliness, content, purification, study, and piety. 3. Asana, posture. The aim here is to still all movement as well as all sensation. The best asana for this purpose is to place the right foot upon the left thigh and the left foot upon the right thigh, to cross the hands and grasp the 2 great toes, to bend the chin upon the chest and direct the eyes to the tip of the nose. 4. Pranayama, or regulation of the breath. By these exercises one may forget everything but breathing, and in this way clear his mind for the passive emptiness that must precede absorption. At the same time one may learn to live on a minimum of air, and may let himself with impunity be buried in the earth for many days. 5. Pratyahara, abstraction. Now the mind controls all the senses, and withdraws itself from all sense objects. 6. Dharana, or concentration, the identification or filling of the mind and the senses with one idea or object to the exclusion of everything else. The fixation of any one object long enough will free the soul of all sensation, all specific thought, and all selfish desire. Then the mind, abstracted from things, will be left free to feel the immaterial essence of reality. 7. Dhyana, or meditation. This is an almost hypnotic condition, resulting from dharana. It may be produced, says Patanjali, by the persistent repetition of the sacred syllable Om. Finally, as the summit of yoga, the ascetic arrives at 8. Samadhi, or trance contemplation. Even the last thought now disappears from the mind. Empty, the mind loses consciousness of itself as a separate being. It is merged with totality and achieves a blissful and godlike comprehension of all things in one. No words can describe this condition to the uninitiate. No intellect or reasoning can find or formulate it. Through yoga must yoga be known. Nevertheless, it is not God or union with God that the yogi seeks. In the yoga philosophy, God, Ishvara, is not the creator or preserver of the universe or the rewarder and punisher of men, but merely one of several objects on which the soul may meditate as a means of achieving concentration and enlightenment. The aim, frankly, is that dissociation of the mind from the body, that removal of all material obstruction from the spirit, which brings with it, in yoga theory, supernatural understanding and capacity. If the soul is cleansed of all bodily subjection and involvement, it will not be united with Brahman, it will be Brahman. For Brahman is precisely that hidden spiritual base, that selfless and immaterial soul, which remains when all sense attachments have been exorcised away. To the extent to which the soul can free itself from its physical environment and prison, it becomes Brahman, and exercises Brahman's intelligence and power. Here the magical basis of religion reappears, and almost threatens the essence of religion itself, the worship of powers superior to man. In the days of the Upanishads, yoga was pure mysticism, an attempt to realize the identity of the soul with God. In Hindu legend it is said that in ancient days 7 wise men, or rishis, acquired by penance and meditation complete knowledge of all things. In the later history of India, yoga became corrupted with magic, and thought more of the power of miracles than of the peace of understanding. The yogi trusts that by yoga he will be able to anesthetize and control any part of his body by concentrating upon it. He will be able at will to make himself invisible, or to prevent his body from being moved, or to pass in a moment from any part of the earth, or to live as long as he desires, or to know the past and the future, and the most distant stars. The skeptic must admit that there is nothing impossible in all this. Fools can invent more hypotheses than philosophers can ever refute, and philosophers often join them in the game. Ecstasy and hallucinations can be produced by fasting and self-mortification, concentration may make one locally or generally insensitive to pain, and there is no telling what reserve energies and abilities lurk within the unknown mind. Many of the yogis, however, are mere beggars who go through their penances in the supposedly occidental hope of gold, or in the simple human hunger for notice and applause. Asceticism is the reciprocal of sensuality, or at best an attempt to control it, but the attempt itself verges upon a masochistic sensuality in which the ascetic takes an almost erotic delight in his pain. The Brahmins have wisely abstained from such practices, and have counseled their followers to seek sanctity through the conscientious performance of the normal duties of life.